My favorite guest, Mike O'Neill, is back, Vice President of Legal Affairs at Landmark Legal Foundation, with a headline, Congress must give authority to punish in D.C. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Fawn. Good to be with you.
Why would they need Congress to go in and clean up a city where crime is so rampant you can't walk to your car without getting mugged?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Well, under the statute, look, we got to look to the law. Now, the statute gives the president a temporary authority to nationalize, to federalize the Washington Metropolitan Police Department. But ultimately, what we have to have is at some point, if this is going to continue, and if the systemic change is necessary to ensure that crime is fixed, to the extent it can never be fixed, but crime is at a tolerable level in Washington, D.C., the city it can be, you need to have Congress come in and pass some new laws and override the D.C. Council to ensure some of these systemic changes that have been instituted in the past 5 years are reversed. Now, what Donald Trump can do is he's doing, right? He has 30 days under the D.C. Home Rule Act to federalize the Washington, D.C. Police Department and utilize them to do what he's doing. And he also has federal resources at his disposal. He doesn't need any kind of authorization from that. Okay. But what I'm specifically saying and what Congress needs to do is they need to come in. What the D.C. Council did, for example, is they really lessened the penalties for juvenile offenses in Washington, D.C. They did this in 2018.
Completely.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So if you commit a carjacking and you're 16 years old, you're basically back out on the streets within a couple of days. There's no effort to de-incentivize, to promote, ensure that these individuals are held accountable. And so the D.C. Council did that, and that was obviously a bad decision because you've seen, look, carjackings are terrible crimes. You've seen those rise exponentially in Washington, D.C. You're also seeing a common thing when you're in Washington, D.C. is you see the ATVs running up and down the street. Now, that can't be tolerated either. Mm-hmm. But what happens is, when the D.C. Council passes these measures, you need to have Congress come in and override it because I don't think that Washington D.C. the D.C. Council is going to step back and actually now they're digging their feet in and trying to fight this in court, which is insane, by the way. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the D.C. Council is going to make the necessary systemic changes. So what you want to see is Donald Trump's doing everything within his power to do it, but you need Congress because they have, again, under the Home Rule Act, under the Constitution, Congress has ultimate legislative authority over our federal city, which is Washington, D.C.
One of the last stories I read was a 16-year-old who was 6'4" and a very giant young man. Color does not matter. Thank you very much. Carjacked a woman with her kids and her dog in the car and took the car with the kids and the dog in it. That's not just carjacking. That's kidnapping.
Oh, right. And that individual should be tried as an adult.
And
right?
He won't be.
Exactly. And so what do we have to do in order to change that, in order to have the jurisdiction is so there's different courts that generally if you're an adult and you're tried in federal court in Washington, D.C., but the D.C. Superior Courts will oftentimes hold on to these cases if they're juvenile offenders. So they're not even tried in the federal courts. They're tried in the D.C. Superior Courts because they're juvenile offenders. So what happens is, again, this is the D.C. Council kind of getting into, well, we fixed the problems back in the bad old days in the 90s when there was the crack epidemic and murders and D.C. quality of life was just miserable, right? And a lot of these changes had been fixed with the broken windows theory, Giuliani modeling that sort of tough on crime rhetoric, tough on crime measures. And then, of course, what happened is over the, in the mid 2000s, 2010s, and then George Floyd happened, and then everything just went, okay, we're just going to accept this miserable crimes, and we're going to decriminalize this, and we're going to take offenders, and we're going to let them out of prison. So that's another thing is you have early release. You have a lot of these individuals not serving longer prison terms. So you have the individuals who commit crimes are more likely to go out on the streets. Of course, we've talked about this. You have no cash bail. You need to revoke that because individuals again can be back on the streets. You can commit a violent offense, and the individual can be back on the streets within a matter of days. So what I'm talking about is the role of Congress, Fawn, is that they have to step up to ensure that the systemic root changes are done. What Donald Trump is doing is important and imperative, and clearly it's having an effect. I mean, they've removed dozens of homeless encampments. They're getting rid of the graffiti. They're having ramped up patrols, which will deter crime. But to ensure long-term success, you need to have Congress have some sort of role in it.
Well, and I want to go to Washington, D.C. I want my little grandson to see America's capital, but I'm not going till it's not so dangerous.
I think you could go now. Honestly, if you want to go, I mean, I give it like a month.
I can't afford to go now, but I'm just saying, I want to clean up.
Yeah, now it's incredibly safe. I mean, right now, you're talking you can't walk 5 blocks without having some sort of either DC, well, they're all federal law enforcement now, without some sort of federal law enforcement. So I think right now you're going to see, and again, this is going to be a good thing. You're going to see quality of life improve in Washington, D.C. Interestingly, Fawn, what's a funny thing is when you look at these protests over the weekend, right? Who's protesting? Who's protesting? The paid protesters. These are the Soros. It's the same people at every single one. You don't see real D.C. residents protesting this and they know, hey, no crime means better quality of life for our city. It's the same cast of characters who manifest every time there's any kind of protest for anything. And I think they're just sitting, I don't know what they do in their day-to-day lives.
They protest protests.
Yeah, exactly.
They protest themselves sometimes. They don't even know what they're protesting.
They don't even realize what they're doing. But it's funny to see, and again, we talk about, you see old white women, I'm sorry, you just have to say it. You see old white women protesting D.C., the decriminalization, the efforts of the Trump administration. And I'm like, okay, well, give me a break. Give me a break.
We actually had a protest here in Cape Girardeau where they're like, we need to protest Trump trying to take over and militarize the streets. I'm like, are you all stupid? Have you lost your minds?
It's the same people, and it's these 60-something like hippie-ass white women, boomer white. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get into it, but it's just the same people over and over again, and they're just hysterical with their nonsense. I mean, come on, really, it's kind of the genius of Donald Trump, right? He gets his opponents to attack crime, to defend crime. I mean, right? Fun. Isn't that just hilarious? It's funny when you step out. You're like, okay. They're defending crime. Again, another 80-20, 90-10 issue. Here
Criminals are the victims.
Right.
Criminals are the victims.
See how that does for you in the midterm elections. Yeah, right.
And they'll probably get mugged walking back to their electric car on their way, from the protest. Anyway, Congress needs to give authority for this to continue. He's got 60 days, you said?
30 days. It can be extended, I think. But here's the thing. That's for the federalization of the Metropolitan Police Department. He does have, again, so with that line, he does have, again, plenary authority over the ATF, Secret Service, FBI, DEA, all of those federal. And again, that's always kind of the irony of Washington, D.C. There is so much law enforcement to civilian population. The ratio is off the charts. That's why it's really incredible that Washington, D.C. is as any kind of crime, because there's so much law enforcement, just the locus of so much federal law enforcement. And federal Trump, again, Trump has authority over those guys.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
The prosecutors are the problem.
Right.
And I've got 30 seconds left. So, I mean, as far as you're concerned, Congress needs to do something because crime's just going to come back.
Absolutely. They need to assert themselves and ensure that systemic changes ensure that Washington, D.C. is the beautiful, livable city it should be.
I'm so glad we didn't have to argue this morning. Mike, thank you.
It's great talking to you, Fawn. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.